Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have to admit, to my shame, it's my first time in Vilnius, not my last time, I'm for sure. And what I do, because I have a team who's in charge of urban mobility, I like to try out public transport whenever I get to a new place. And I have to say, is there anyone here from the public transport administration or operations in Vilnius? Anyone? Difficult to see from here, so your hands, but I would like to congratulate them, because I have to say, in my personal experience, the app, the Trafi app, is easily the best one I've seen so far. I mean, it's fantastic to get really from place to place, from location to location. So I can only recommend, if you haven't tried it out, to try this app. But I'm not here to talk about public transport, or not only public transport, but rather about where we are and where we are going. And I have to start with a disclaimer, and you heard it from the Prime Minister and from the Minister as well, that currently the Commission, we don't yet have a confirmed Commission. I don't have a confirmed Commissioner. The hearings are scheduled for early November, so afterwards we know for sure. So what I'm going to tell you at the same time, I would like to show you a little bit where we are at the moment, but please don't forget to check back in early and the middle of November to see what actually are then the confirmed portfolios, what are the confirmed tasks for the new Commission. How do I slip the slides? Would you mind putting on the next slide, please? Or maybe I have a beeper here. I don't have. Thank you very much. So, in general, this is our sustainable and smart mobility strategy, the basis of what we're doing in transport. I'm sure many of you have seen it, and I don't want to go too much into detail, but just to show the different elements that, of course, thank you very much, that's very kind. The different elements and the different aspects that you already heard about from the Prime Minister and the Minister as well. Sustainable, smart and resilient. And under resilient, I also, and you can see it here, count, of course, competitive. Resilient competitiveness. Something quite recent you might be aware of, but I'd like to spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes on this nevertheless. The TEN-T network. You see the corridors, you're probably familiar with the corridors, but maybe you're wondering about the dots there. If you're not wondering about the dots anymore, that's great, but maybe some of you are wondering about the dots, because what we actually have now is we have the new concept, or the reinforced concept of urban nodes. You see the 9 transport corridors there, but you see the dots, and there are 431. Not on this slide, I'm sure, but if you check them in the legislation and in the overall framework, you will find 431 in there. Because, of course, it's not only the corridors, and no one really intends to transport and stay on the corridor. It's these urban nodes that are very important. And you see the different timelines that we have for this. So the overall transport network, the 9 corridors, but also the core network and the comprehensive network, and the dots, of course. What about the dots? And this is new. The dots, the urban nodes, they're not cities. They're the functional areas of the most important, the largest, the most important for transport urban areas in the EU, 431. We want to connect them better to the network. Not only look into the operations within the node, but integrate them into the network. And you see the requirements here for multimodal passenger mobility and multimodal freight hubs to have for each of these 431 freight, at least one multimodal freight terminal, freight hub, and at least one passenger hub to integrate them well into the network. Part of this then is of course to connect the network and what happens on the network to the urban nodes and to logistics within the urban area. So an important new element not only of the TEN-T but also of our urban mobility framework is to look into zero-emission city freight logistics. It's something that maybe we didn't pay enough attention to in the past. We were looking very much on passenger transport, we were looking very much on mobility, and rightly so, and there's a lot left to be done in this area. But we also need to look, and we are looking at the freight logistic area and the last mile delivery. And what can we do? What can we do on European level, but also what can be done on local levels, on national levels. So we have a specific expert group that looks into mobility aspects and how to actually organize, how to improve the overall conditions in there. Military mobility. We already heard the Prime Minister speaking about it, the Minister speaking about it. Military mobility, we realize that this is important, is more important, has become unfortunately more of the focus than it has been in the past. So what are we doing to support the dual use or the military mobility as such? You might have seen the action plan on military mobility that already is out for a couple of months, for about a year, a bit more than a year. But also support. There's support available. There has been support available for military mobility. Support available to improve the infrastructure. We had a call, the last call in May 2023. A specific one, 4.7 times oversubscribed. So we see how important it is and how much demand there is. The EIB, in the meantime, has also set up support facility, a support possibility to help with investments. The TEN-T regulation that I was referring to before strengthens in particular also the resilience of the network, preparedness, military mobility aspects. So all of these aspects are also integrated, not only the nodes, but also the military, the dual use. We are preparing for a study to look more into detail of what large-scale military movements, what requirements we need, what requirements, how ready we are, what we need to do still. So what we need to operate the military mobility on the network. The current and last, most recent CEF call, which is actually still open, 2.5 billion, substantial support available through this one, isn't a specific one on military mobility, but it is one where military mobility can be an important element, and in particular when the evaluations will take place, we will pay attention to any possible military mobility corridors, military mobility aspects. So not a specific call for military mobility, but if you may be in the preparation, if you're involved in such projects, indeed the links to military mobility will be an important element in the evaluations. So that was where we are now, the framework that we have, the very new framework. And we heard about innovation in general, and you're here to talk about innovation and many important elements from digital to fuels, to resilience, to competitiveness, to industrial competitiveness. All of these are very important elements. The TEN-T and other regulation and legislation helps with setting framework conditions for deployment. But indeed, looking into the future and what comes next and what will be the focus in the future. You might have seen the Draghi report. The Draghi report isn't specific on transport, but it also talks about transport. So you'll find transport in several of these elements in there. And you can probably subscribe to most of the points that you see here and that are mentioned in there. So it talks about sustainable and green transport, low emission and zero emission vehicles, renewable energy that we need, innovation, digitalization, smart management, traffic management systems, autonomous vehicles, safety across our network. We still have far too many road deaths, in particular in the EU. Infrastructure modernization, so connectivity, and investment and funding, of course. So this is what Draghi in his report is saying is important about transport. And I would like to show you as well, and here really, you see also the disclaimer down there, so please do check back. Do check back after the hearings. Maybe for those who are not so familiar with the European Commission and how the process works, our president, who's already confirmed, President von der Leyen, has nominated European commissioners, commissioners designate. These commissioners now will have a hearing. Each of them will have a hearing in European Parliament, and then Parliament will have a vote afterwards, and there will be information finally from the European Council. So what I'm showing here is really kind of the starting point. It's not the end point. So please do check back after the hearings and to see what then finally really the specific mission is. Also, there might be some reallocations between portfolios, between commissioners, and also between commission departments. But I wouldn't like to miss the opportunity to share with you a little bit what actually is the current thinking or the starting of this process. So you see in this mission letter for the future transport commissioner, the 10T corridors. That is not a surprise, and to complete them, so to keep up and intensify the work. The build-up of charging infrastructure, the simplification of charging fees and payments. Also, this is not something new. It's not something I think that will surprise people, but it's important, and it's good to see that there's a focus still on this. And this is important because we have work left to do, all of us. Actions on making progress on the single European sky, aviation, an important element for aviation. Implement the European Declaration on cycling. Maybe some of you have seen this declaration. So we had for the first time ever, now we have a European Declaration on cycling, 36 actions to support cycling, but also to integrate it into urban mobility and beyond, also to integrate it in tourism, and not last but not least, also an important industrial element, because manufacturing and maintenance of bikes, in particular electric bikes, is a growing and an important industrial sector. Strengthen the social dimension of mobility, and that ranges from jobs in the sector, skill shortage, labor shortage, but also into transport poverty and rural mobility. So how can we support those who in particular suffer from the changes that we have from the innovation, or who don't even yet and today have access to good mobility? So an important element, not to focus only on urban mobility, but also on the rural and remote areas. And also focus on those who need support, who don't have access to mobility solutions at the moment. Digitalization, an important element, and it will continue to be an important element in different sectors, from road to rail and multimodal. Security and military mobility remain very high on the agenda, remain very important, and international connections and leading role in international organizations. And that's the second part. And here are some elements that maybe are kind of new nuances, are new focus areas. And again, I say you see this, you see the asterisks there. Please check back when the commissioners are confirmed, and it's also important. We also will check back, of course, what will be our political guidance on this. But I wanted to show and share with you the starting point. So to have a stronger single market for transport services in the EU. Promote a resilient and competitive tourism sector, a sector that is getting also more important for transport. We see how more and more of the transport needs are also for tourism, whether it's long distance or short distance urban mobility. High-speed rail and ambitious network. Put more emphasis on this high-speed rail network and to complete it. A proposal for a single digital booking and ticketing regulation. And those of you who have been involved in this or have looked at it or worked on it know that this is quite a complex and quite a challenging file. But you see that there is willingness and there's the need, I think we all agree, to make progress on this. Sustainable Transport Investment Plan. And here, of course, I need to see myself as well, what will it look like on the political level? So how will the structure look in the future on investment? But you see here that the willingness to, from our side, to go towards kind of a more ambitious but also more integrated investment plan. Clean corporate fleets, so how can we make more progress in this area? Industrial support plan or industrial strategies, support strategies for automotive and maritime sectors, very important industrial sectors. How can we stay at the forefront? Can we keep the innovation? How can we remain being the most innovative on a global level? A strategy for promotion of cutting-edge technologies in transport. How can we be the first ones on the market with new technologies, with new solutions? Because ultimately it's about solutions. And last but not least, an important entry point and exit point for imports, exports, the EU ports. So a comprehensive EU port strategy. So this is a bit of a glimpse into the future. See you again in November. Follow maybe, I will follow. I'm sure some of you will follow as well what happens with the hearings in Parliament. And hopefully by December, the latest in January, we will know. We will know for sure. We will have the exact mission then for the future Transport Commissioner. Until then, I thank you very much for your attention. It's a pleasure to be here to speak to you, to speak with you, to listen to you. And I'm looking forward to very interesting and very innovative discussions today. Thank you very much.